Well, today we're working on flyers. I've actually gotten some done already. So we can take a look here. Oh yeah. I'm really happy with my color choice here. I was looking to replicate um, the colors of the sort of official post-Human Republic army. And surprisingly, the color that I found in my repertoire that was the closest was Joe Sonia Skin Tone Base, if you believe it. I've already got some mixed up right here, ready to go into the airbrush, as that is the way I'm applying all my colors here. But let me go over the basic steps, because we start with a skin tone base and we just do it over the whole thing. Then we do shading with the airbrush as well, with Agrex Earth Shade. And I kind of like airbrushing with these because you don't need to thin them. They spray pretty well. They're not great. They do have a tendency to clog a bit, but they're really thin, so great for shading with the airbrush. And what I tend to do, and here we'll demonstrate with these, is we follow the panel lines around and then hit the recesses anywhere where there's any kind of dip or recess. And then we go and get in there. Then I go back with a brush with the Agrex Earth Shade and actually just drop some straight into the panel lines, and that's how you get that hard line in there. And I put some into the sort of gunwales and into these little dots, and there's some other little detail bits, and drop some all around there. And with the various levels of shading that you get with that, it turns out quite well. The things that are metallic get a base coat of black, and then I paint a thinned coat of what did I use? I think I used bolt gun metal, because I still have some left and I really like that color, but lead belcher would have worked just as well. And then I wash that with Nuln Oil, and then go back and pick out some of the areas that I want to be particularly shiny, and then do the little color bits. Not too bad, actually, not too hard. I mean, well, assuming you have an airbrush and you're reasonably competent with it, you can get really nice results. And I'm very happy with these, and I'm very happy with how the colors turned out. Here's another one. Let's take a look at this one. I'm afraid that the video loses some of the subtlety of the paint, but let me tell you that it looks quite good in person. So I am going to go get set up here, and then we're going to start spraying. So I'll be right back. So I've already gotten started here a bit on this first coat. I'm spraying with my Iwata Custom Micron, and this is a little bit bigger a project than I normally would do with this brush, but it seems to be handling it okay. The trick here is to build up the color slowly. You don't want to overload the detail, you don't want to get drips, and you want it to be really smooth, so it's always best to do it a little at a time. I'm having some issues with my my trigger, the air doesn't want to stop as quickly as it should, and I think it needs to be lubricated. This. Well, I'm going to get back to finishing this all up, and I'll come back when it's complete and you can see the base coat. So I finished up the base coats, and then I went ahead and started on airbrush shading, essentially following panel lines and recesses on these little guys. I think you can kind of see it there. And it's kind of a little tedious task, and I need to have it up close to me, so it makes it really difficult to do it on camera. So I am going to do it off camera, as I did with these guys. But I didn't want to get all the way through without showing you finished base coat. Nice and clean, nice and smooth. It did show a bit of a casting problem that I hadn't seen previously, which is impossible to fix, which is right in these vents here. I think it'll look fine, I guess. And I found some little pinholes here. I'm going to fill those in. So there's one there and one on the other side and one in the middle here. And those will be easy to fix, but this here is just a little more unfortunate. I still have not received my replacement parts. It's been about a week or so since my last correspondence with Simon at Hawk War Games, but I believe since it's coming from the UK, I should not be so surprised that it's going to take a little bit of time. And in the meantime, I can finish up all the flyers, and that's actually why I decided to work with the flyers first, is because I wasn't waiting on any pieces from them. So let me get back to this little shading bits, and I'll show you when I'm done. So with the airbrush shading done, I'm going in and adding the hard panel lines, and there's these little dots and vents, and that is all just done with the Agrax Earth Shade. You can see this side was done and this side was not yet, and you can see the really kind of cool difference there, how that side is so much more well defined. There's no trick to doing this, except that you have to have a steady hand, unfortunately. And my hand isn't all that steady. But you just make sure that you get the shade into the line. You want to have a decent point on your brush. And I don't at the moment. And draw it down. I'm having difficulty doing this on camera, which is why I keep having to do corrections. And then you can just drop it into the vents. And into the little dots. It's okay if it builds up. Actually, that I like how it looks when it just spills over. Because it darkens up the whole area, but it really defines the little dotted areas. And what I find is, like, especially on these things, you want to make sure that they're filled with a wash, but you don't want the wash to get everywhere. You already did all the shading that you want to do outside of it with the airbrush. So if you end up getting too much outside of it, it's just going to look messy. So I'm going to actually, there's a little problem right there, and I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come back and clean it up. But I can just continue on. I'm gonna go ahead and continue on with this off camera, but you can see how that's really coming along and really defining all the detail. And so let me go finish it up and then we'll come back. Alright, so I've gone ahead and done all of the metallic, both sides. And this is just a thin down coat of bolt gun metal. But I think that lead belcher would work just as good. And I'm just going to put a coat of Nuln Oil over the top. And I'm going to be fairly liberal with this as I want to get a good contrast. And the nice thing in these blades is that the Nuln Oil goes right down on its own into the sort of depths of the fan. So it ends up creating a really nice contrast between the shadow and the highlight all on its own. You really have to do very little work here to make that work. By the way, I'm back out in my shop now. It's finally gotten warm enough here in Massachusetts that I can work out in the shop and I don't need to have the heater out. So that's why this shot is a little bit different. I've also got a different rig for the camera, which should keep it a little bit steadier than it's been when it was in the house. I'm actually suspending it from the overhead lights instead of having it on a tripod or mounted to the table or anything like that. That tends to not work so well, well, specifically in the house because of the wooden floors and the general shakiness of everything, but even in here, any floor shaking goes straight to the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and this is just straight Nuln Oil, by the way. It's not diluted. I haven't done anything different with it. Straight up Nuln Oil. I'm trying to keep it off of the hull itself, the outer portion of the of the fans. And then I've got this intake. Same thing, just liberally applying the Nuln Oil. And then these little detail bits here. think I'm going to go find a smaller. Smaller brush. So I'm going to go finish this up, and then I'll come back when it's done. So once the paint dried, I went back and did some of the little details, like the, I don't know what these are supposed to be up here, but all of the ships seem to have something like that. And just went back and made sure that, you know, all the little, you know, all the details were taken care of, and I didn't miss anything, and I think it all looks pretty cool. And this is essentially the same paint scheme that the rest of the models are going to get, and those are going to be next. So that will be my next video, and then you'll be able to see the finished force after that, I believe. But that's going to be it for today, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you watch the next one. I will talk to you all later.